Good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you all again. And I am joined today by grandparents, Richard and Jane, and Auntie Pat. And actually, what is lovely about this is that it shows quite clearly that estrangement and alienation affects the whole family. I think sometimes it gets forgotten that we have got other members of the family who are suffering just as much as grandparents do. And so it's lovely to be able to include Pat this morning. So, Jane, would you like to tell me how you find yourself being estranged and alienated from your grandchildren?
Well, we were extremely involved with our daughter and her family for many, many years. We looked after the children she worked. We looked after the children. She got divorced, came to live with us for 9 months.
Yeah, nearly 12 months.
Moved out into rented accommodation. So we had the children with us all the time. When she moved, we again were very involved with all their lives and saw the children every day.
But they did come to us to live with us when the one was a baby of 6 weeks old.
Yes.
So we went back to parenting, nappy change and all sorts.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
So towards the end of 2015, my daughter became very, what can I say, odd with me. Her behaviour was, she seemed to withdraw from me. Yes. Why? We have no idea. Or at the time, we had no idea. Yeah. She met a new man. And we can only presume that in some way he had some type of influence over her. We can't say coercion because his personality is all, his perceived personality is not like that.
Okay.
So all through 2016, we saw the children regularly. They came here, they stayed. We took them to school, holidayed. And then she was very distant, I have to say, all through that time. And there was one episode with one of the children. He is a very sensitive child, and he had told us three that he didn't like the relationship.
Okay.
He wasn't happy.
Right.
And we had a couple of instances when he would come and he would cry and cry and cry. And this one particular day, she brought him, and they were both really quite hysterical when they came. But we let the situation carry on for a while. Anyway, she was going to take him home. And I said, well, you know, he's got to understand the situation. And I said to him, you know, because the other two were here ready for bed. One was in bed asleep. Not the youngest ones. And I said,
because I was taking them to school next morning.
Right.
You know, and I said, now get up the stairs, get up those stairs, get undressed and get into bed. You're not upsetting your mother like this. You can't, you know, hold her to ransom because you don't like the situation. Well, that was it. I can elaborate a bit more on that because, you know, the boyfriend was here as well. But you know, that was it. That would be about November 2016.
End of November.
End of November. Anyway, December, what was it, 19th? 17th. Knock on the door, 6 o'clock in the evening, a chat with a summons for me to go to court on the Monday morning. And it was a non-molestation order against me towards her and the children. had no idea what was happening. We'd never had a row. That was the only incident that there was that year. We never had a row, nothing at all. And she took me to court. That was the Thursday. I had the Friday to do something about it, get a solicitor and do something about it, to appear at court 11 o'clock on the Monday. Went to our family solicitor that we use for everything, you know, houses, everything. And there was only one woman that could see me. And her advice to me was, she contacted the daughter's solicitor, and there were phone calls and faxes and things. And her advice to me on the Monday morning was that she would email a letter for me to take to the court, but not to say anything.
Right.
Don't say anything. Richard was allowed to come with me as a Mackenzie friend.
Yeah.
He wasn't allowed to say anything.
It's a good job.
So we got there, all sorts of things. The solicitor came over to us. The children were taken off the order.
Yeah, we made him take them off.
Well, because during the time that when she was divorced and she was living with us all locally, the school that the three boys went to, the headmistress involved social services because of different things that happened.
Yeah.
We had supervision for her and the boys.
Okay.
So the children were taken off the molestation order. And we went into the court. There was just her solicitor, myself, Richard, and the judge. And the solicitor outlined what it was all about. The non-molestation order was for a year. I wouldn't see her or go near her for 1 year.
Mm.
The judge said to me, do you understand you're going to undertake, what's being asked of you, that you don't see your daughter for a year? So I said, yes, I do. And he said, well, sign here. And that was it. I didn't have chance to say, there's nothing in the statements that she's written that is true. One thing was true. Nothing in the statement that was true.
It's all lies.
It was all total lies, all fabrication. So that was it. I agreed, inadvertently agreed, not to see her for a year, which was fine.
Can I just say that this is the start of how bad this system is, right the way through the court system. That judge, he was just there for that day to pick up his money. He wasn't interested in anything about it. This was the start. He didn't elaborate. All he wanted us to do was sign. Mm. And that was, and obviously from bad information that we were given, bad advice, etc. But that was one of the main starts of the whole system, how we've proceeded as it's gone on.
Yeah. That must have been an enormous shock.
Shock. I can't tell you what the shock was like. Yeah. It was absolutely appalling. We had no idea that she had anything on her mind at all. No. Nothing. She never indicated that there would be anything whatsoever. She didn't want me to know because she said that in the statement that she'd written, because she was frightened that I would go round to the house. They changed the locks because we've got keys to the house. They changed the locks. She was frightened that I would go round and molest her. Mm. All through this, unfortunately, Jane, I have to say she was diagnosed with MS.
Okay.
Dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And we weren't allowed to know anything about it. We weren't allowed to help in any way.
Mm-hmm.
But the other strange thing as well, after Jane was said, I won't see you for 12 months, we still carried on seeing the boys in the normal way. I still took them to school. But bearing in mind, I was going down doing work in London. I'd come back, get them ready, bring them here so that I could take them to school next morning. And that went on for the next 12 months.
Yes, and that I was going to ask you that. So what happened with the children? Okay, so you weren't legally allowed to see your daughter, but it was okay for you to see the children.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, because we'd made the solicitor take them off that.
Yes.
Because if they stay on, walk away. Sure. And that was the only
should have
thing.
done.
And then he scrubbed them out.
Okay.
Yeah, but then, anyway, during that year, that would be 2017.
Yeah.
September.
Yeah.
October that year.
September.
They moved to Wales.
Oh no, dude.
We did know where they were going. The one grandson told us where they were going to live. Actually got it up on the computer. I knew,
because she showed me. Because this is the strange thing. I was still in communication with her as normal.
Of course.
In the next 2 months, so I knew where they were moving to. Had seen the house.
Okay, gosh.
So, but they couldn't move into the house. They rented somewhere, didn't they?
Yeah.
So at this point, because we were still seeing the ex-son-in-law as well,
gosh,
she cut him off completely. When they moved, she cut him off. She didn't let him have a phone number or anything at all. He hadn't got a clue what address they were living at. He tried to get hold of her, didn't he? Numerous ways, through his solicitor, through, all sorts of ways. So that's how the court process started, because he took her to court then because she was withholding the children from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next stage was?
The next stage was when we knew she was moving. She had a date to move, which knew she was moving, and we had 2 of the children this particular weekend, and Richard took them back, and he said to her, before you move, before you go, I want to know why you've done what you have.
Yeah.
Why have you done, such a drastic thing? Why not sit down and discuss things? Why not, talk to your mother?
Mm.
Why did you feel you had to take her to court? Well, he had a load of rubbish, didn't, no real answer. Mm. And then she cut Richard off completely. He had a really nasty
I had a wonderful email and text about I was the worst father, didn't take her out of all these terrible things. And it was if it wasn't serious, it would have been funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So that's how the court process started. That Christmas 2017, after my year of not seeing her was finished,
yeah,
Richard said, "Come on, we're going to go down and see her. Take the children's Christmas presents and see if we can't sit down sensibly and talk about it all." Well, we were met with the new man in her life, answered the door, and he said, "She won't see you." He said, if you don't go, she'll call the police. So he said, well, that's fine, call the police. We've got nothing to hide.
And as it happened, the school that the boys are at was just literally across the road. So I walked over to see the boys.
Yeah.
At which point I was met by the headmistress.
Right.
To say, I'm very sorry, I can't let you see the boys. I said, well, that's fine. I can understand your situation, but let them see me and see what happens. She said, I can't do that.
No, couldn't do that.
Because that would have been but to be fair to her, she did phone us later to explain that she understood the situation.
Okay.
Yeah. She was, and because she had phoned their last school.
Yes.
And
Okay.
you realise then what had gone on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a part we'd played in the boys' lives.
Absolutely.
So the police came, had to ask us to leave, but they did take the Christmas presents in. Whether the boys had them or not, we don't know. But the police did take the presents in. That was like almost a 3-hour journey back for us.
Oh, okay.
And when we got back, there was a note from our local police to say, could we contact this certain policeman to arrange a meeting, which we did. He was, don't forget, this is just like days before Christmas.
Yeah,
He was
19th.
on 19th.
Yeah.
And then we arranged that he would come and see us at 10:30 at night, because he was on night duty, of which he didn't turn up until
11:15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're at work the following day
And
with a very high-powered job we got in a dental practice, dental nurse Jane, I'm the receptionist, and we've got a really important job, and we always got to bed early to get up early. So we were like, at 12 o'clock, we were drooping.
yeah.
But we did all what we were supposed to.
Okay.
Anyway, he came with he was a detective in a suit. He came with a policeman in a stab vest.
Full body armor.
All the stuff together. And he came with a harassment notice.
Yeah.
To say that we were not allowed to contact them in any way, her.
Yeah.
No, but it wasn't the children. Well, I suppose it was
her.
the children. I can't remember. So much has happened. And we had one each, and we had to sign these harassment forms.
That was another mistake.
Yeah, I mean, now,
Another mistake.
since we know better, we shouldn't have signed them.
No.
We didn't harass
They
them.
were very nice. The two policemen
Oh,
were
yeah.
extremely nice.
They were very good.
Yeah.
We've seen 5 altogether.
Yeah. We've
We're
seen
getting
those.
got used to it, Jane.
Yeah.
We're getting got used to it.
And they actually said to us, do
Right,
you
yeah.
think she has mental health issues?
Did they? Okay.
Which, when you look back at it, when you analyse it all, there is something definitely wrong. How can somebody who was a normal, happy-go-lucky, you have to say everybody liked her,
Yeah.
person,
She was a nurse,
is a nurse,
loving,
She's a nurse.
caring.
to this really horrid, vindictive person?
Yeah.
Don't know.
No.
Everybody says, is she being coerced by the
No.
new man?
No.
We don't think so. He's
No.
terribly...
He's encouraging it.
Oh, yes,
Very
he's,
moral.
he's enabling her to
Yeah,
do it.
instead of saying, "Now, come on, let's sort this
Oh,
out."
yeah.
He's obviously encouraging her.
You see,
Because she is
with him...
relentless.
Yeah, with him and his family, they only know what she's telling them. From when she met him,
Yeah.
they only know what she's telling them.
Of course. And actually, in these circumstances, what shows, of course, is that if there is somebody who is enabling this sort of behaviour, they can come across as extraordinarily calm, plausible people as well. And so it's actually quite difficult to ever really, that's why coercive control is almost impossible to prove, because it's so difficult.
Jane, if you knew her, I cannot possibly think any person, man or woman, could coerce her. She was such
She's very
Very strong
assertive, and she's very intelligent.
and she's so
Oh, yeah.
together to allow. I can't possibly see Samantha.
No.
No.
The honest thing is, of course, we never know.
No,
As
don't.
I said before, you know, so often with all of this, we make assumptions. We assume we know what's going on, or we think we know what's going on. We actually don't. And so what you have to deal with is what's actually happening to you, because you know what's happening, because it's you that's involved. So okay, so you had a harassment order. So what happened after that?
Well, really, this is where she then puts everything into the ex-husband.
Yes.
Who is trying,
Monty.
and each time, and then each time that he seems to be getting closer to getting the boys, she throws something else into the melting pot. This is where we feel the whole system is so it's so biased, and the people that are in it are box tickers. Yeah. They're not interested in going to see what's happened. Yeah. And each time she said to through the court that he's taken them to see us. And yet we have never had the recourse to go to court to say our side of it. Yeah. It's all about us to stop him and bringing them to see us, if you like. Yes. And each time, but we haven't been allowed in that family court to say anything. That's what. And in the meantime, we've had 2 more visits from different police officers. We're quite used to it now.
The last ones.
In fact, we're having tea and cake ready for them.
The last ones were very, very. They'd interviewed her.
Oh yeah,
for 2 hours.
They'd interviewed her for 2 hours, and then they came to see us, and obviously afterwards we went through all these sort of things with all scenarios, and at the end of it, the one police officer, well, she was a detective, said, do you think she has mental health problems?
That was the second one.
Because I'd said to her, you've interviewed our daughter for 2 hours. What did you personally think? And she said, well, I can't really comment, but everything was very fanciful. And then I said, great. I said, what happens to your report now? She said, that goes to the family court. I said, marvellous. Have the family court seen it? Not a chance.
You asked to see it as well.
And that was the thing. A bit later on, I rang them to say, could I have a copy? Never seen it. This is again another thing in the system where people. The main problem with the whole system, nobody does their job. It's so easy to come and interview people, put it on a bit of paper, stick it in a file, and it's never seen again.
It's been very difficult, Jane, because our son-in-law really has been piggy in the middle, if you like.
Yes, he has.
Extremely.
Whilst he was trying to see the children, they did agree that he could see them under supervision. Because she said again, her argument with me was that she was abused. She had a very abusive childhood. She didn't, I can assure you, but she had a very abusive childhood. She was saying during her marriage to Ian, he was very abusive to her, and that she was frightened for the children, that he would abuse the children. So he was allowed to see them under supervision at a centre. During this time, his father died. So he was very adamant. He was, not we persuaded him, he was very adamant that they should be able to see us and his mother, because he didn't want, I mean, we're at an age, we're in our 70s, you know, that anything could happen.
We're on the downhill slope.
And he didn't want anything to happen that they wouldn't have been able to see us. So he's the one that's been rooting for us, really. We haven't asked him to. So, you know, this is how it's been going in court.
And the difficult thing is we're so reluctant to sort of throw
And of
anything
course-
in
Oh, thanks.
in case it affects the children.
Yeah, we don't
all the
want
time.
anything to interfere with his.
And the children, and because we had, you know, such a personal relationship with them, right from
did.
babies. I mean, it is a really strange situation.
Thank you.
Yes, from babies, Jane, and I can tell you, when she first came, 3 were in nappies. That's something I didn't do. Jane did all the nappies.
No, I did quite a few.
Oh, you did, but
I was very
that was
good
one
at the
job
kite
I
napping.
didn't do. I did everything else.
I was very good at the kite napping, I can tell you.
But you know, it's just we are at a loss to know.
But then
One of the things she did say was, when she was asked once why she didn't want the children to see us, was that she'd been on a child safety course. What do they call it?
to do with work.
You know, to do with her nursing. She'd been on this child protection
Safeguarding, was it?
guarding course, and she had realised from doing that course that she'd had an abusive childhood. Well, if it takes you 40 plus years to realise,
yeah,
you know, why had it never been mentioned before?
There was a time, Jane, when Richard and Jane were moving house. So they had a short period of time living with my mother, my late husband. So we were nice family, all crushed into a bungalow. And then she was only a toddler then, but she was known then as having 3 mothers and 2 fathers.
Yeah, yeah.
She was a very loved child.
Yes.
The one thing that was true in the statement that she wrote was that I slapped her, and I did slap her. One day, I can remember it vividly. It was a Sunday. She'd gone to play with friends. It was very hot. And she rang me to say, would I go and pick her up? And I said, well, it's such a nice day. You start walking and I'll walk and meet you. We'll meet halfway. Well, she never did she? And of course, I was worrying the whole way. Oh, I shouldn't have done it. I should have gone to pick her up. You know, what's happened to her? Something's up. You know how you get. And I was in such a state. Yeah. When I got to the house, they lived in a big house with a very long drive. And I had to go halfway down this blooming drive, and there she was. She was 10.
Okay.
And I got there, and she's always been a very assertive child, you know. She said something innocently, I suppose, but very cheeky, and I slapped her.
Yeah.
Regretted it, you know. I just lost total control, and that was it.
Yeah.
But this was 30 odd years ago.
That was
So from what you're saying, I mean, obviously I don't know you as a family and I don't know your daughter, but you know, you're using the word assertive, but would the other word be control?
Her.
Is she controlling?
Oh, very controlling now with the children. We
absolutely.
picked that up, haven't we?
No,
you know, what they can do, what they can't do.
The worst part of this now, last year, 2019, was the last court case in June. And ex-husband was allowed to have the children as he always has done every other weekend, blah, 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 holidays, etc. And they could see the extended family, but not us,
not Richard
or Jane, until sort of November time, which we said, marvellous.
Because the judge said you get your relationship back on track until you take them to see them, because she was so adamant that they really shouldn't see us.
So in September, he got the boys and they wanted to come and see.
We got his ashes.
Well, because we
had her dog. We had her dog, elderly dog.
Yeah, we kept the dog.
And he died. And we had his ashes, and because we'd always said to Ian, you know, the children.
His name again.
All right.
And you know, we'll let you know when we've got the ashes. And the the children can do what they like with him. Which is what we did. We went out for the time when the children came.
And then he brought them here.
They came here, Pat was here, and Richard's other sister was here.
Katie. Sorry.
They had a lovely afternoon. They've still got their own room upstairs.
Still as
and
it was,
the youngest one was up and down and out in the garden and everything.
Wanted to go in the garage to see if his
scooter was there.
Scooter was in the garage.
And the older one said to his father, "Look, Dad, I want everything to go back to normal. This is silly, you know, we can't go on like this.
It's gone on too long.
It's gone on too long.
That was his word.
Want everything to go back to normal." And his father said, "Look, you know, we've talked about this all over the weekend. You know, if you want things to happen, you must talk to your mother and talk to other people, like your teachers."
Yeah.
There was a guardian that was appointed by the court who was absolutely useless.
No, worse than that.
And, you know, let them know how you feel about it. Well, they must have had a horrible reception when they got home. Must have been awful, because she sent a terrible text to the ex-husband. She wouldn't allow the children to have any contact with him, FaceTime him or phone him or anything like that.
She had something put on the phone.
Yeah, she controlled all the phones.
She controlled the phones.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it went back to court again.
Yeah.
And
even though he was allowed
to take them to see who
he was
he
allowed
wanted
to see extended family, she then threw in the new, you know, more of abuse.
Yeah.
Thing. Because once the abuse goes in,
Yeah.
all the box tickers think, "Oh, great."
Yeah.
You know.
And it went back to court, and the judge said, "Well, you know, what's been going on? Can you tell me what's happened?" And he was told what he brought them here and that sort of thing, and then her thing was that she didn't want them to come. The children were terrified of us. They were terrified of Pat because she had sexually abused one of them.
Yeah.
She wouldn't say which one it was.
Yeah, they can say that in the family court. If that would have been in a normal court, the police would have been around the next morning. The whole system is just mad.
And Kate, the other sister, was in the house when it happened. So she didn't want the children to have any contact with any of us at all. And that's what the ruling was at the end of the court. I mean, we wouldn't see them.
Yeah, and in these situations, even the judge is sidelined. He's of no use at all, because the two.
Asked her to.
And he said, "Where's the evidence?" But it still didn't make any difference apparently, because it all went through between the two lawyers and all this sort of thing, and it's all about us, but we aren't in there.
Yeah, it's all about us.
Yeah.
The ex-husband is at fault because he brought the children to see us. So, you know, she didn't want them to see him. You know, it's all about us. Me.
Well, all of us now.
Well, all of us now, but it's me she's got the thing about.
Yes.
I think to give you some idea of the guardian was appointed.
Yeah.
And at one time, she was supposed to have done this, that, and the other with the children, and it took her 12 to 18 months to interview the ex-husband. He from Gloucester.
He's a farmer.
Yeah, so he comes up from Gloucester. She comes down to Worcester, which is just up the road from us.
Yeah.
And he said to her, "Will you interview the grandparents? They're only up the road. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Don't need to do that. No need to do that at all."
No, what she said was, "No way. No way is that going to happen."
No.
That was her words.
And that's the guardian.
Yes. I mean, And of course, the trouble is that the idea of the guardian is that they should be there looking at the child's interest, and in a lot of cases they do a good job, but unfortunately, of course, we only hear about the ones that do a bad job by the nature of the beast, really.
You can't tar everybody with the same brush.
No, you can't, and I mean, that is their role, is actually to be making sure that the kids are okay and that their interest is being paramount and being taken into account. But as clearly, that doesn't always happen. How old are the grandchildren now?
14, coming up 13, and...
No, 11.
Oh, 11. Oh, dear, 11.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, are they now seeing their dad or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
COVID.
That's
Yes.
in the right direction.
And it's Wales, you see, he couldn't cross over into Wales, and so it was, but he's FaceTiming them and stuff, yes.
Oh, but they've been to the farm, haven't they, recently?
No, only
Rory, but
no, only the youngest.
Yeah, only the youngest.
Okay.
He wanted to speak in the school holiday with his dad.
He wants to feed.
He wants to feed the calves.
And actually, I mean, that what I was going to say, they are of an age now when the family court actually should be listening to what they're saying anyway, because they are what's known as Gillick competent. So they are able to make decisions like that for themselves. Certainly the 14 and 13-year-old are. And so, yeah, I mean, if they're saying they want to see their dad, then that's what should be happening. I mean, it doesn't always happen.
Yes.
He's don't know, Jane, what that, if they say yes, they do.
Want to see us, do you mean?
No, to see the dad.
Oh.
And try to get things sort of normal-ish. But what are they going to go back to if she's putting these obstacles in the way for him? I mean, look at his last text. There's reams of it.
Yes, reams of it. There's always reams of it. At the beginning of the lockdown, Jane, we wrote a letter to her saying, in these awful times, would it not be a good idea for us all to get together, really sort things out and find a way forward?
Yes.
But we never heard anything back from it at all.
Okay.
She wrote this text to the ex-husband to say,
Recently.
because she always says we have got a mental issue. Our mental state is very poor, both of us. Yeah. His mental state is very
everybody's
dicky.
Mental but her.
Yes, everybody's got a mental state but her. And she said, I think from things I've gathered that you've said to the children or whatever, I think your mental state, your mental health is suffering. And obviously because you've been coerced by by your ex-in-laws.
Yeah. Not
my parents. Not my parents. By your ex-in-laws.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't at all, Jane. We don't. I can assure you, we do not.
And as I said just now, though, the trouble is with this coercive control, it works both ways, doesn't it? It's something people can say is happening, but trying to prove it is virtually impossible. One way or the other. And I think with all of this is that, you've eloquently described what has happened, with this for all of you, and it's the injustice of it all that we all feel.
You've hit the nail right on the head. Exactly.
I know, and I think that it's not being able to have your, if you like, 15 minutes, being able to stand up and say what you want to say, and I mean the whole. Richard, you've said it yourself, and you've heard me say it too. The whole family law system is not fit for purpose, and it's not. Whether you're a parent trying to see your children, or whether you're grandparents of an extended family, somewhere it's gone badly wrong. and which is why, you know, people like us and others are still trying to make people sit up and take notice of what's going on, because at the end of the day you have 3 children there who have been affected really badly all of their lives actually now, but by this, and it's about adult issues and children finding themselves within an adult issue of which they should never have anything to do with.
No.
Can I just say, Jane,
Yes,
that's how we have, all 3 of us have got now, because anything that happens, if we try to do anything, will affect them.
Yes.
We don't want that anymore. So to say we've drawn a line under it, that sounds a bit abrasive, but it isn't. Because we've said to gotta say ex-son-in-law, because he's good as, if there's anything we ought to know, we let the son-in-law know. But we won't, in other words, we won't make any waves.
No,
if you say something to us, it'll be in confidence. If one of the children says something and you tell us, it won't go any further. We don't want them, because they're older now, we don't want them into any position that they were put in over 12 months ago when he brought them here, the 2, eldest and youngest. And
I think most of us realise that walking away, drawing a line, reaching a place of acceptance, whatever you want to call it, has to happen at some point, because it's about the children and we don't want to make their life any worse than it is.
I mean, I could see, I'm living with it. It's destroyed Jane.
Yes.
It could have destroyed her profession had it have gone any further.
And
I know it destroyed my brother inwardly, because he's kept us going. You know, so something has got to happen.
And I can, you know, I can see clearly, and everybody who sees this will be able to see clearly on the screen how this is still affecting you so badly, all 3 of you. And that's why I talk about self-protection a lot, because at the end of the day, we have to try and keep ourselves healthy physically and mentally for the grandchildren.
Yes.
In the hope that at some point they will reach out to us. But we need to be fit and healthy for that to happen, and to be able to receive
that's our course now.
And I absolutely get it. Pat,
I finally have got through to him.
Yeah, and it's so important. It's so important, because I see the enormous destruction that this does to family life, and it's absolutely awful and can become tragic in too many cases. And that's why it's very difficult when somebody's starting on this journey. Of course, they have to go through these stages of grief, because that's what it is.
Yes, it is.
It is, absolutely. And so it's about people going through those places of grief, and we all do it at different levels, so there's not a one size fits all. But at some point there has to be that point when you take stock of what it's doing to your own life, your personal life, your personal relationships, and actually how it's dealing with you. And you have to be really strong, and it takes courage and strength to actually be in the place that you are now, but clearly still hurting deeply. But Pat, before we go, can I just ask you, as an aunt and obviously sister, how, I mean, you've touched on it a little bit just now, but how has it made you feel, all of this?
Tremendously sad. It never leaves you. I've recently wrote to the youngest. I had, I suppose, a lot more contact with the youngest.
Yes.
Because in the latter months of them being here, before they went to Wales, we were working full time, but we still collected the children. If Richard, I suppose the word, if I hadn't asked him to collect them on the way back from London. So Jane was busy stripping the children with all their school clothes, getting them washed, getting them in the dryer, while I sort of manoeuvred the bedtime bit.
Yes.
The youngest, I could get to bed easy because I could get him in my bed to settle him, and he'd be asleep in minutes. Watching the telly with Tractor Ted was, I can tell you anything, Jane, on any sequence of Tractor Ted, what it's all about.
We watch Tractor Ted,
don't we?
Consequently, I was a little bit more
Closer
involved
to him.
with him,
Yes.
close to him.
Yeah.
On a Saturday, that was a joyous time when we hadn't got to go to work, and they would be here as usual. The youngest would come into my bed, so would the middle one, but then he was he'd gone off Tractor Ted, so he'd leave, and the oldest would be down on the computer, and we'd be watching Tractor Ted. So this is recently. I found the most beautiful card with a tractor and trailer, a John Deere tractor, I can tell them all. And I said to
the dad.
No, I said to you.
Oh.
Can I call you?
Yes, yes, yes.
I said, oh, I'd love to get this. Look at this for the youngest. And Jane said, oh, get it, she said, and just write him a note or something. I said, oh no, that might cause a lot of trouble. I said, but I've got to buy it. So I bought it. So I showed it to Richard. He said, yeah, write to him, write how you feel. I said, no, I'll just put that I found it. And I did put something about it, didn't I? That you'd be proud of me, that I can name all the tractors and blah, 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 and love you lots. And I'll go and Granny send their love and kisses and big hugs and blah, blah. And I sent it to Ian. I got Richard to text him to say it was coming.
said his name again.
Doesn't matter.
And I said he's more than welcome to open it and read it. And if he thinks he would like to give it to him, he can. If not, just put it in a drawer. That was how we put it, wasn't it? But that is recently. And just things like that, little things. Now, Jane said something. We were out in the garden this week, and there was wind coming down, not these last 2 hot days. And I wonder why it was still in the garden. There's a windmill, and it does make a racket. And who did you say to? Oh, your sister. And it was, and she said, oh, it was the last thing the youngest one bought before we hadn't seen them again. Yeah. And I haven't got the heart to throw it away. Yeah. That's this week.
Yes.
It's the little things.
You say you're going to be strong.
Yeah, and then you go into a big collapse.
It never leaves you. Never will.
You just collapse. Now, no. Richard, recent months, he said to me on the computer, shall I send the boys these? I said, oh, Richard, come on. We don't know what size they are now. He was looking at the rugby shirts for this new rugby thing.
Welsh rugby.
Welsh rugby.
Yeah.
I said, don't keep torturing yourself. Left it at that. But didn't he go and do it? Unknowns to us, but the son-in-law said he doesn't know whether they had them or not.
I'm not sure whether they've had them or not. He's trying to...
Do you know, I don't think that matters.
It's little things.
I think, I mean, so often grandparents will say, what's the point of me sending this, that and the other, because I don't know if they get them. And no, we don't know if they get them or not, but actually that doesn't really matter, because what you've done what you wanted to do because you thought it was the right thing to do. And so I think that's fine. And you know, if you do that, I should, you know, whether they got it or not, who knows, but you did it for all the right reasons, and that's all that matters. But I'm so grateful to the three of you. You have been really open, really honest, talking about something that is very personal to you three. And I know how hard that is, and I can see how it has affected you. And I'm hoping that by doing these interviews with grandparents and aunts, the other grandparents will be able to take something away from it. That so importantly, that grandparents aren't alone, and that there are people out there who are going through exactly the same thing, and they are there to help and support, and that's the most important thing.
Yes, I have to say that it's helped us tremendously with the grandparents meetings that we have, to know that there are other people like us.
Well, in fact, when you listen to some people, what's happened to us is minuscule.
Yes, and I think that although it's very painful to listen to all of that, isn't it? Sometimes it puts things into a little bit of perspective for us all. And I think, you know, for me, listening to you and your stories and stuff, take great solace in the fact that you have been fortunate enough to have been really involved in those three children's lives. Whatever may be coming across at the moment or in the past, it's in their heart. They will never forget you, and those memories will always be there for them. And that's worth hanging on to.
And that's what we want, this, not stepping back, or closing a door. It's just, we don't want them to be into any trouble or anything, because it's not fair.
No, it isn't. And I happen to agree with you. Lots of people come across very differently when you say things like that, and say that, you know, you shouldn't walk away and to keep trying and all that sort of business. But actually there does come a time for all of us that we do have to make that decision, because it's not fair on the children. And, you know, if we are talking about the children, if that's where our focus is, that's what we need to be doing. And I absolutely understand, and I get what you're coming from.
There was one thing that my brother said prior to the day that their son-in-law bought them here that day, the two of them, eldest and youngest. I said, I'm getting quite nervous about it. And Richard said, why? What are you nervous about? He said, look, he said, just open the door and just welcome them in. That's all you've got to do. Oh, I said, look, well, if there's anything goes, he said, I can promise you, when those children come, they will go straight to their bedroom. They will look in the snug to see where their toys are. I said, Richard, don't be silly. Of course they won't. They won't. They'll be afraid to come in, won't they? He said, no, they won't.
I said it'll be just as if nothing's happened. And that's
Jane,
exactly what it was like.
I can promise you.
I know, been there.
I was like all tense. The bell went. I opened the door, and as it was, my cousin and her husband were just leaving. They'd been here for the day. We were arranging to go to my aunt's funeral, which was on the Friday. 101 she was, Jane, but we were talking about them coming to the funeral. They left immediately. So it sort of broke that bit of ice.
Yes.
I said, come on. I said, now I want a big hug off the youngest. I said, I don't want a big hug off you, because the eldest, he towered above me. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. He said, so I did give him a hug, and they were kicking the shoes off by the door, which they usually did. And didn't the youngest run straight up the stairs? I thought, Richard, you're quite right.
Just as if nothing had happened.
Yeah,
Just,
and the eldest went into the lounge with his dad and was sitting down, and Kate says, "I'll go make a pot of tea. Anybody want a sandwich or anything?" "Oh no, they've just had McDonald's, I think, I don't know. They'd had something to eat." Rory come, the youngest, I'm sorry, come running down the stairs. Then he went in the snug, and then he got the big box of toys and stuff out, which incidentally weren't on show. Jane had put them under the big table with the drop leaf. So he must have got out of them somehow. And I thought, well, just look at that, Richard was just right.
Yeah.
And everything sort of was just so easy.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it is, and I've seen that for myself, and so I absolutely understand. But that's what children are like, you know. That children are extraordinarily resilient, and actually they just want things to be as they should be, and so they just get on with it. And so yeah, I mean, I understand.
He didn't say that, but I did, and that's why I wanted to instigate. I took lots of photographs. I didn't know how to do video stuff. I'm sorry, I didn't. Kate could have done if we'd have thought. But what they must have gone back to must have been quite awful.
The oldest actually said to his dad, when they got back to the halfway meeting point, "Oh my goodness, look at his face."
That was the boyfriend husband now. They're married.
I'm married now.
Well, we
"Oh,
think
look
they
at his
are.
face. We're in for it now." That was his words to his dad.
We're in for it now.
Yeah, and of course that means that the children are still going through it, and it's still affecting them. But actually, what will happen is that they learn very quickly, children, how to deal with things like that, and they usually deal with it quite well.
Last text that Ian has had.
You said his name again.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jane. It is so involved and so lengthy. He's all uptight. "Oh, if I got the money, I'd take her back to court." I would. I mean, he has spent in excess of £30,000.
Well,
Go back to court, it's going to cost more and more and more, of which probably the family have, but not him personally.
No. And as we know, you know, because it's abundantly clear, court's not the answer anyway.
No.
You know, until the system is changed, or until some judge somewhere decides they're not
that's what we need
any longer.
With this text, and to Ian, "Oh, do you think we ought to give him some money and let him go back to court?" And for what, Jane? For it to be exactly the same. Like you said, we have got to look after ourselves, and we are now.
Yes. And I think, you know, you're absolutely right, and that has to be important. And because the grandchildren are obviously of an age, and they're getting older every year, actually they will just be making their own decisions before very long anyway. So, you know,
well, it's got a girlfriend now.
Well, and that helps. And actually, you see, what we've got now is we've got a whole generation of kids who have experienced this.
Yeah.
And so their own peer groups are the ones who will support them over this and, you know, help them, I hope. And so, you know, you just have to go on doing what you're doing. And as I say, it's abundantly clear, you know, what a relationship you have had and will continue to have at some point with these children. So hang in there. But can I just say, before I go, thank you, the three of you, so much. It means a great deal. Talking to people like yourselves, and
it means a great deal of us to explain that we haven't done anything wrong.
Yes, it does. And the more people do things like this, and so we can raise awareness that actually we aren't monsters with three heads, we're just ordinary people, the better. But thank you again, thank you so much, the three of you. And I hope when you see the finished article that you will be pleased with it. So thank you very much.
Saying names, it's my age.
You're marvellous.